So what makes a great bank fishing rod? What are some of the features you should be looking for next time you're in the market for a good rod? Well, we're going to go over that in this video. So now there are three main features that you need to be looking at when you're thinking about getting a new rod, especially when it comes to being a bank fisherman. Also, there is a fourth feature that is sometimes coming in effect, and we will talk about that as well in this video. So let's get started with the first feature. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about, and this is going to be one of the main things to help you with that casting distance, is your lure weight. This is super important. I see a lot of guys, they'll have really heavy weights on their rods, and their rod only calls for 4 ounces of weight, and they already have a 4 ounce weight on there. The problem is that doesn't mean, like I just said, since it says 4 ounces, that you can put a 4 ounce weight on there and you'll be fine, because you still have your hook, your swivel, and your bait. And sometimes we're throwing big bait as catfishermen, so you're over the limit that you're supposed to be on these rods. And the problem is, when you get too much weight, these rods don't load up right. They load up way too much, and you can't get a good catapult effect out of them. So you lose a ton of casting distance if you overload these rods. So what can you do? You can go down to, say, like a 2 ounce weight, and you're going to get much more casting distance out of this than you would if you put a 4 ounce weight on a rod that's rated to 1 to 4 ounces. But the problem is with going to really small weights, if you're looking for a really good bank fishing rod, is we catfishermen generally use pretty thick line, anywhere from 20 to up generally is what you'll see. Now I'm running 40 and 50 pound mono on most of my reels, depending on the size of my reels. So when you go down to, say, 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce weight, and you sling it, it comes out of here really fast on the release. But because that line is so thick and that weight isn't that heavy as, say, the 4 to 5 ounce weights, it starts slowing down really fast, because that thick line starts slowing down that weight. So you lose the casting distance by going down to that weight than you would if you had a good rod that could support a big weight and have a 4 and 5 ounce weight on there. Let me show you one of those. Okay, so this rod here is 6 to 12 ounces. This thing is a beast, right? So I can put essentially a big 6 ounce weight on here, have my big old bait on here, and have my big 10, 12 aught hooks, my swivel, and I'm good to go. I'm still a little underweight. I'm fine, right? So this is going to be able to cast a mile. I've got 50 pound on this. There's a big reel on here too. And that weight, that big old weight that I'm putting on here, is heavy enough to keep pulling that line at a really fast speed and not slow it down as much. So that's kind of what you want to look for when you're looking to get a rod that you want to cast really far. You want a good weight on there, so you want to make sure that your lure weight is up there. A good one. Now this is probably overkill. That's really high for a rod, but you would want to look for one that would say up to 6 ounces per se, because then you could throw a 4 ounce weight on there, and with your bait and everything, you're going to be fine, and you're going to get good casting distance out of one that would go up to like a 6 ounce lure weight. Now all of that information is generally located on the back end of the rod. Everything that we're going to talk about today mostly is going to be located on the back end of the rod. And here, for instance, this is kind of hard to see. This one doesn't have that information. The only thing that they put on there is it's a 10-foot medium action. They didn't put the lure weight and stuff like that on there. Companies like this tend to keep a little information on their rods, because it does kind of look bad. You got all this writing on there. It looks a lot better when they just put none or a little bit of writing on there. So what do? They put it on their website. So this is a TWC rod. You can go to their website, and all the information that you would want to look for, like lure weight for instance, is on their website. Now, however, there are a few companies I have run across that will not put it on the back of their rods, and they do not list that information on their website. Guys, if they don't give you the respect to give you the information you need about the rod, then don't give them the support and buy one of their rods. Okay, and real quick before we move on to the next step, something that I wanted to point out. This one is 1 to 4 ounces. And this is a semi-thick rod. It's not super thick. Let me come out here a little bit. It's not super thick, but it'll support 1 to 4 ounces, right? So a lot of people think just because it's a much beefier, thicker, heavier looking rod that it will cast a lot more weight. So we'll see how that one is. Now, let's see if I can get this up here without making a ton of noise. This one back here is actually quite a bit thicker than that one. As you guys can see, it is super thick at the base and all the way up the rod, actually. But this thing will actually only put out 1 to 5 ounces. So just 1 more ounce, and it's almost twice as thick, as you guys can see the rod below. It's almost twice as thick, and it can only throw out 1 to 5 ounces versus 1 to 4. So really look at the rods. You want to look at that information, and don't just assume that one is bigger than the other and it's going to be able to cast much further, because that may not be true. The next thing we're going to talk about is the action of the rod. Now the action of the rod is really important for hookup ratios, because with most people that are catfishing nowadays are using circle hooks, right? I use circle hooks. You probably use circle hooks yourself. And those circle hooks need time to turn. Now if you have an extra fast action, which means that it's going to be in just in the tip and nowhere else, it's going to rip that hook out before it gets to turn a lot of time. But generally you're going to miss fish with that kind of action. So you do not want an extra fast, and you do not want to slow, meaning that it's going to be in way down the rod. But this right here is actually a fast action, and you can see that it starts to bend back here, right? So it's not just in the tip. This one you push down and you got a bend that starts happening right here. Fast action is pretty decent. To me personally, I like a moderate or medium action, which moderate and medium are the same thing. Some rods put medium, some rods will say moderate action. But let me show you what a medium action looks like and kind of where it bends at. And you can see that when a fish starts to apply pressure, it bends up enough to give time for that circle hook to get to turn. And that's going to be important for your hookup ratios. Okay, so now, hopefully you guys can pick this up, because I can't see the camera from here. Now this is a medium action, or a moderate action. And what you're going to see here is, see how much it loads way back here. So that's kind of what you want when that fish starts taking off with this rod, or with that bait. You're going to start to load up, and you're going to get a good flex all the way up into the tip of your rod, and you're going to get a good bend back here. But you're still going to be stout enough to winch these fish around, which is the next thing we're going to get into, and that is power. Okay, so this rod right here has a heavy power, and basically what power means is it's how much pressure it takes before that rod starts loading up. Now you want good power for these long casts, and you want good power for help saving a trip. So basically what I mean by help saving a trip is, if you have say an ultra light or a light, or even just a medium light action rod, and you're out there fishing near a brush pile or rock piles and things like that, when you get a bite, you need to get that fish in, get it away from there. If he's headed towards a bridge or headed towards some kind of structure that you know you're going to get hung up in, you want to be able to pull back and turn him around and get him coming back to you. So you want a good power rod that's going to help you control these fish, move these fish around. If you have something that is super light, any little touch is going to flex that thing plumb out. So these catfish, again, are bigger fish than, you know, these bass and bluegill and things like that, obviously. So we need heavier power. So a heavy power is pretty good to go with. I would even go with maybe a medium heavy sometimes in certain situations, but heavy power is about where I would be looking for if I'm in the market for a rod. Now real quick, we're going to go over that fourth feature, and I actually got a bonus tip for you guys looking to get rods that's going to last you a long time. So we'll get into that as well. But now, what is the bonus tip for a bank fishing rod? Now generally length is going to help you. Now again, if you don't have any of those features that we talked about before, 8-foot rod can and will outcast a 12-foot rod that has really bad features for catfishing from the bank. So if the rod has really good features and it's got good length to it, say a 12-foot pole, then you are going to be able to get a ton of casting distance out of it. You're going to have to be able to control that fish really well. The hookup ratios are going to be really good on those fish. But sometimes you get to bank situations where you just don't have the room to cast a 12-foot pole. I have those fishing spots. I think all of us do. So you need a kind of a majority of fishing rods. And if you can get you a good long rod to get some extra casting distance out of, and you have the room to do it, by all means, I strongly suggest you go for it. But go with the longest rod that you can get away with for the area you're fishing. I know a lot of us, we pull up on these spots and we're down over the bank, and right behind us is some tree line and stuff like that, and we cannot get a good cast in from there with these long rods. We need that shorter rod. So that's kind of a bonus tip. If you can get away with the long rod, get away with the longest you can possibly go with. the last bonus tip we're going to go over is the eyes of the rods. If you want a really good long lasting rod and you want to get these good stainless steel kind of eyes right here that do not have inserts in them. Now these things are awesome. Let me try to get this to focus in for you guys. There we go. So these eyes right here are really good eyes, and they don't have inserts in them. They're not going to pop out over time. These eyes are going to last you a lifetime. Very good. Now let me show you what one looks like with inserts. So here is one that has inserts. Generally these are going to be black looking eyes. They're going to have these little inserts in here. Time after time I've had several rods with these inserts in them pop out. All my buddies have had the same situation where they pop out over time, so they're not built to last. This is a cheaper rod right here that you're looking at now. It's $30 for the entire rod. It's a huge rod. So they didn't put a whole lot of money into it, and they didn't expect a whole lot of money back out of it. But if you want a rod that's going to last you a long time, look for good features like those eyes and stuff. So I hope that video helped. I hope you liked it. If you did, leave a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Also, here are 2 videos that I think you'll like. If you like this video, here's another good informational video that may help you out with some fishing. And here's a really good fishing video for you to watch if you like watching fishing videos, and there's some tips in that fishing video as well. So guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.